What's good,
What's
bruh?
up, dude? How are you?
How you doing? Oh man, this is not gonna work. I'm gonna turn it down. Okay, there we go. How you doing, bro?
I'm all right, man. I'm all right. Like this pandemic things is weird times, Obviously, none of us have been through it, and parts of it are like interesting, parts of it really suck, and then, I don't know, parts of it are whatever, I guess. Like, not to put aside like the seriousness of it, but it's weird.
It's super weird, right, dude?
Yeah.
Like we've never experienced anything like this, and I think to your point, it's complex, right? Because there's actually people right now that are really growing their businesses. Like I don't know if you follow that DJ D Nice.
No, why it sounds really familiar though.
Yo, bro, he went from like 250,000 followers to 1.5 million in a day, like a day or two,
Whoa, that's
because he was doing these
crazy.
quarantine DJ parties or whatever. And, he was known before that, but this was like his big break. The freaking coronavirus was what led to his big break. So,
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. That's how I'm seeing. Yeah, that's how I'm remembering like the name. Yeah, I've been seeing him online, I guess, and people are throwing like all the DJ parties and well, like
yeah.
some of the stuff too, like as that's happened in the past. Like they say, like like some of the pandemics in the past have really caused like a revival or like resurgence in like art and creativity and
Mm.
I think that's kind of cool, man. I mean, we're forced in one place, like, and for me, like, dude, this is
All right, let me.
this is how I'm letting my creativity out. It's such a different thing for me, like, and I'm like, hey, I like miss all like my creative chats I have with people in person, so why not like try and do these? So and yeah, people are they're making businesses, they're making art, they're making music, they're doing all different kinds of things, and I think that's a beautiful thing, if like you can allow your spirit to kind of like come through the hard times.
Yeah, it's crazy. I know people that have passed away, so I say it with like a whole bunch of grain of salt because I realize that this is a result. A lot of people are suffering right now because of deaths, but also because of financial issues. We're fortunate that nobody in my wife and like our immediate family, no one has been touched health wise or really even financially by this.
Oh wow.
So what this has caused for me is a pause in certain things that were really necessary. Like I really enjoy my rhythm right now. I'm kind of like happy that so much of the industry has just come to a full stop
Yeah.
so that now I can kind of, I don't know, I guess utilize this time to really create better rhythms and better foundations for everything that I do moving forward. Yo, did we start already? Nah,
I
right?
mean, basically, but
Oh,
there's a couple more people that are filtering in. I mean, that's kind of like the way I like to do it. I like to just have a casual conversation and ease
oh,
it.
okay, okay, okay.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
well, lead the way, man.
yeah, for
I'm happy
sure.
being here.
Yeah, Megan's here. I know there was a couple other people who were gonna join, and they'll
Okay.
they'll show up. But yeah, man, it's I'm stoked to have you here. First and foremost, thanks, dude.
Thanks
I'm
for
pumped
having
to
me.
have you come and chat with me. And mostly I'm doing these for myself. Like I said, that like I need my creative language. I need my creative outlet, and also like I really love talking to people. Like I'm like it's kind of cool to pin my friends down and just like ask questions. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's cool,
um,
man.
yeah, I'm stoked that you're here to chat, and I can't wait to dive into to what it is that like you do and kind of like maybe what makes you tick a little bit. But
Yeah.
I guess if you could, would you just like sort of maybe just introduce yourself and I guess give a little bit of what you do? I know that's really broad, but
Sure, sure, sure. No, no, no. So my name is Del. I mean, everybody calls me Del. I manage a couple of artists right now. I have one that's a rapper, writer, another one that's a rapper, but also comedian. And every manager is completely different. I have a strong creative leaning. So I end up being you know, as a manager, you're everything. You're a CEO, you're a therapist, you're a best friend, because it's such an intimate job, you know, especially the way I like to do it. I don't enjoy working with people just because I think they're going to make it big and we're going to make a whole bunch of money. I feel like it's such an intimate job that we really do need to have an authentic friendship. And I know that's super idealistic and I'm going to miss out on things because of it, but I'm willing to do that, to have a quality of life that I want. You know, it's a big thing for me. I'll turn down money that's going to come with issues every day of the week, you know, and to me, success is more than money, even though I want a lot of it. I just love that I wake up every day. I work with my friends. They're super talented. I get to help them achieve the things they want to achieve. And we're making things that I think are important and positive, you know, but as I was saying, I largely play a creative role. The two things that I enjoy most is product, like kind of like product management, product creation, and then also the creative marketing goes behind it. Those are the two things that are the things that I gravitate towards that for me are like play, you know, and managing music artists, a lot of the job encompasses that. So it's a pretty good role for me, you know?
Yeah, man. I remember when I had came to the show. I don't know if it was last year or the year before. It was Words and Andy, and then
Oh yeah.
before we walked inside, Chris and I were there, and like I picked up some of the merch, and I was like, "Oh, this is sick." And Chris is like, "Yeah, Dell did all that," and I was like, "Whoa!"
Yeah.
I like love how you have like your hands in like the creative aspect of like, and it was, dude, it's so on target to something that's interesting because it's like, how do you do merch at like a show, or like how do you do like the typical, but like how do you put a spin on it, like, you know, that
Yeah.
makes people pick something up and be like, oh shit, what's this, you know, like that's not an easy thing to do.
Yeah, that's a constant struggle. Right, you want to make something that communicates something about what you believe in and what you represent. So I think about that. So this shirt, what is it telling people about the, you know, the philosophy of the people that made it? But, you know, you want to make it financially viable too. You know, we just did this big tour and I really went crazy on embroidery and puff print, and I wanted like a certain blanks, right, that were really like high quality blanks. But when you look at the cost, you're just like, holy cow, we're like gonna make no money. So you always have to, you know, it's a fine line, right, where you want to make something. But, you know, to me it's a challenge. A lot of people will be like, oh, that's corny, just make what you want. And I'm like, well, you know, I embrace the fact that how can you make something really cool that still has, you know, good margins in it? And to me, I don't view that as like, oh, now I'm a suit. You know, I wear that as like, yo, that's a challenge, you know, because for example, using less colors, you know, will cause the piece to have a lower cost of goods, you know? So we're like, now we're asking ourselves like, man, okay, everything is give and take. Everything is a compromise. What are we willing to compromise? You know, sometimes I'm like, I'm not willing to compromise the blank, the actual quality of like the shirt.
Yeah.
If we're gonna spend the money, let's do it on that. I'll find a creative, really cool way to maybe use limited colors and not use things like embroidery or puff print that makes things cost more money. But you know, something that happened, because it's so hard to get sucked in, especially when you're making money and when you are accustomed to making a certain amount of money, or you're dealing with a business that has a certain overhead, is that you're always at risk of leaning both ways, right? Where you're like giving precedence to the margins or where you're giving precedence to the art. And I had a good friend of mine that owns a clothing label. He owns a label called 316. It's really dope. You should check it out. Actually, he'd be great to have on here. He's
Sick. I'll
amazing.
check him out.
His name is Andrew Chen, and he sat me down and we did a merch piece with these Carhartt blanks. And when you're dealing with a lot of text on merch, you need to like review it 1,000 times because there's like inevitably always typos. You know what I mean? Always. and we missed it, and we did a couple things because I think we were trying to execute a lot of things in one time at one time. So he just sat me down and was like, yo, this thing is a representation of what you guys stand for. And I know you. I know this isn't what you guys are about, but to people that don't know you, they're going to pick this up and think otherwise. And what that made me do is accept challenges, like I was just telling you right now, but also it made me scale back and focus on doing less things for the sake of preserving the quality. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Well, also I like kind of how you're touching on like this creativity versus business, and it's like, how do you decide, like, because man, when you have like a creative idea, speaking from myself, like sometimes when we know it's a good one, we like latch onto it. How do you know when it's okay to like let go of it and let like it ebb and flow, or you let, like, because you got to allow the business in a little bit too, and like it can't all be creative sometimes. And man, how do you mesh those two together? And like
It's tough,
dude,
man.
that's the toughest thing, right? Sometimes it's like, how do we let go, I guess?
It's tough. I really believe in instinct and gut and and compromise. I mean, everything is a give and take. It just really is. And it's on a case by case basis. You know, there's no blanket answer. Like sometimes, depending on what your gut says, you're willing to make compromise here, but not there. And I think as long as it doesn't cross a line and now you're kind of selling out your beliefs and values, I think it's just a challenge. I just view it as a challenge. You
Yeah.
understand what I mean? For
Yeah.
example, if I were to do something with an organization or even something stylistically that goes completely against what I believe in, like the things that make like that I'm passionate about, that make me like angry, and I do that very thing because there's a payday there, to me that's crossing the line.
Mhm.
But me, listen, I don't want to be one of those people that makes great things for a little bit amount of time because I can't stay financially afloat. You know, that breaks my heart when I see that. When I'm like a fan of like a clothing company or a restaurant, like whatever, right? That they're doing
Yeah.
something really cool and they close because they just don't know how to handle the business side of it. Like, no, I think I want you to be around. I want to be around. And to do that, it has to be a give and take. And you know, it's all a matter of perspective. If you look at you considering the business as a creative challenge versus a I guess creative killer, then now it's just a creative question. You know what I'm saying? It's no
Damn, I love
longer,
that. I love that, man. That's
yeah,
like a couple people have been saying that, and I'm like, it's starting to reframe the way I think about business because, just to be honest, like I'm like sometimes I feel like I'm like, oh, okay, creativity, business, and I see them as separate. And people are like, yo, why don't you look at business creatively?
yeah,
And it's
yeah,
just
yeah.
like, I'm like, oh shit, yeah, like wait, why don't I? So I'm trying to like think, I'm trying to think in terms of that, and as you saying that, I start to think like, how does that line of thinking come into play? Let's say like as a manager, because you're helping out two other people who are artists in their own right,
Yeah.
and where does that sort of thinking come into play? I would assume it helps them in another way, that maybe that they can be more creative and.
Well, I'll give you two examples, right? So when it comes to making merchandise, it's a lot easier to balance these things, right? Because you have market data, right? Where you're like, man, look, we're about to go do this tour through these cities. We've been there before. They don't usually buy anything above this price point, right? And we're projected to sell X amount. So you have a line that you don't want to cross financially on a shirt, let's say, right? So you're like, oh man, you don't really want to be over $10 on that shirt, like for no reason, okay? And you also know how hard it is to put that tour. So for you to go out, you know, my artists leave their families for months on end. For them to come back and they made no money is, I think, a it's terrible. Like I would never want that, you know, because I know how hard the work is. So on a shirt, it's easy. You're like, damn, okay, I have a $10 to work with, right? So you already know, like, well, I really want this blank. Shoot, that's $5 already. Okay, well, embroidery is out the window, you know. So right there, it's like if you can just turn on the creator switch and be like, ooh, what can I do with these $5? That's like really cool. That's great. So, but that's a lot easier, right? Because it's like very strict bounds.
Right.
I'll give you another example. I was on the phone this morning with the A&R at our record label. And he was like, hey, man, this song, which is a song we're all super excited about, is freaking great. It's like, yo, the producer is charging mad money and the writers are charging mad money.
Damn.
Like way more money than I thought and way more money than I think we should spend, you know? And I'm like, well, this record is really good, man. Like, you know, scare money don't make money. Like I'm kind of leaning towards like, let's just do it. You know what I mean? Because I think this record's got potential. You don't know what the record's gonna do. You know, we could spend this money with, like I told you, with merch on the road. It's like so much more of a calculated risk. You know what I mean? But the same way that it's a calculated risk, taking merch out on those markets that you've been to before, it's also not, there isn't a possibility that something could just go crazy. You know what I mean? The risk reward is relative, you know? But with the record, this record could change this guy's life, could change all of our lives, right? Yeah. So it's you know, there's where you gotta be willing to take a risk. We were speaking about another record a week ago where he was telling me the same dollar amount for it. And I was like, never in my life would I pay that money for that record because we just don't believe in that record. Mm. You know what I'm saying? So there it is again, you know, and it's different according to the specific creative thing that you're talking about, but it's always a balance and it looks different. You know what I mean? But it's always a balance.
Yeah, for sure. Dude, I think I was just thinking about the first time that I think we met, like our conversation was about music and I always thought that was awesome. Yeah. You know, as somebody myself, like who loves music, I find it a really hard process to find new music. I'll get stuck on one album and I love that, like, or a one playlist. And I've started making playlists for myself. And, but really like the way that I like to find music is I like to discover it through other people because I feel like somebody like you, I remember then you told me about your playlist on Spotify and I started listening and I was like, yo, this is a good taste of music, you know? So like, how do you self-curate like your own interests, your own preference?
Man, I think every creator is a curator because I honestly believe that all we're doing is stewing up influences. And the ones that are called the most original probably just stew it up in a way that it's harder to detect those influences. It's really funny. I was watching a video on Quentin Tarantino yesterday, and they were just talking about how he just they were talking about homages, you know, but Quentin Tarantino was like, bro, I don't do homages, I steal. That's what I do, you know? And I really believe that. So I try to be a real student of film, of music. You know, something that I'm starting to do now is learning more of the technical side of it. That's always been I would say like an underdeveloped thing for me because I just love curating so much that creating was always like, oh yeah, and I'll do that too, you know? But I'm starting to see now that, for the last couple of years, especially working with the artists that I work with, that I think really the fullest purpose of all this curating is to make something new out of it. You know what I mean? In addition to sharing it with people, right? But I feel like there's so many outlets now that what people really yearn more than anything is for people that are creating new things out of the things that they're influenced by. So I look at my curating as I do three things with it. You know, it's either something that I'm going to steal from, but not necessarily something that I engage with. So a movie, a song, I might not really like it. I also care about like, what are you talking about? Like the substance, you know?
Hmm.
So to me, there's records that have like incredible stylistic aspects of it that I'm like, oh my gosh, those drums and that guitar and what the heck, like this person's tone, their flow. But I'm like, oh, they're talking about things that I just think are corny. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, yeah,
taking someone else's girl is mad corny to me, dog. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
Like you're insecure and that's how you want to do that. And honestly, you're a douchebag for wanting to do
For
that.
sure, of course.
So I'm not gonna probably consume that as much, but I can still go in there and be like, I love the feel of this record though. Like, man, how can we do something like that, but with a better message, not a corny or like hyper pop, just a better message, you know? Then there's things that are like sound really cool. Like, dude, I was playing Kendrick Lamar "Feel for You" on our way up to upstate New York for the Greats thing.
Yeah, yeah,
And I was
yeah,
just like, yo, this is a song that I could listen to every time. I've listened to it hundreds of times and it still feels like the first time, you know?
yeah.
And I was asking you, I'm like, yo, you got any songs like that? Because that's a record that I love the substance and I love the aesthetic of it. So that's a record that I'm not only stealing from, you know, but I'm also consuming. And
Well,
I'm
does that
also
charge you up? Does something like that, does that like, because for me, like I throw on music and like it makes my brain really visual. Like I imagine a lot of
mm,
things. You know, it takes me on a journey. When you hear something or when you're curating, whether it's music or interesting like design or like does that like charge you? Does that fuel you?
like having music while I'm doing that.
Yeah, or like having like listening to music, like you listening to that Kendrick Lamar track, like is that like infusing you with something?
You know what it is with me, man? I think I listen to music more. I don't really listen to music uh passively. You know, I'm always like, yeah, I might have it in the background if I'm really paying attention, but I listen to music really to actively to try to be like, okay, what can I steal from here? Who would like this? You know what I'm saying? Like, what can I
Yeah.
do with this? What's in here, you know? So for me, it's either going to be like, oh, that song would blend really well with this song with like a DJ mentality, right? Or, oh man, those drums, we should take that as a A&R mentality, you know what I mean? Or so for me, I realize that I don't, if you look at my Spotify, it's like, it looks like a research tool more than it looks like uh, a music player that I'm enjoying music on. You
Yeah.
know what
Is
I
that
mean?
your approach in like your other work too? Like let's say you're making something for one of the artists, like is that because I know, me and you have worked together and I've seen you at work and you're like, I see you just fully dive into it, dude. It's really
Yeah.
cool to watch from my perspective. And I would imagine you're that way in other ways. Like are you like do you fully research? Do you fully like you just like take these things like, okay, this is my
Yeah.
next tool. I'm gonna put it here and I'm gonna mix them together.
Yeah, man. I think what I do effortlessly, like I gravitate towards it, is research. You know, the actually now creating something out of that is that's why I say every creator is a curator, but I lean more towards curating. You know what I mean? Like I could sit down and look through stuff and organize it and kind of metadata it for reference. I could do that with no limit. Like I could do that 16 hours a day every day and I
How
won't
do you
get
know what
tired.
makes the cut? What makes something good?
It has to connect with me. You know what I'm saying? It has to connect with me. I think that's what art is, right? Like you want to have art snobs that are like, oh, this is good art. Like, man, it's just what connects with you, you know? So I think the more that you immerse yourself in things, the more that you have confidence in what you like. And you don't, for example, I was watching Some Like It Hot with Chris and these guys, and I'm like, I don't really like this movie, but I can respect it.
Right.
I can respect it, but it made no connection with me. And I think if you're insecure, you're like, damn, I'm in a room with a lot of people that know a lot about film, and like this film is really respected. Like, oh, I better like it, you know? But I'm like, nah, this one ain't for me. But I still give it mad respect. Like, obviously, it's like very acclaimed, but it's not for me. You know what I'm saying? I know what I like, and what I like is what makes a connection with me.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's really a really important connection to make, is that like art makes us feel a certain way. You know, like
Yeah.
we have this emotional connection to it. When I'm creating, when I'm making something, like I think that's why creativity in business is a little tough for me. You know, I'm always going to keep understanding it, but I feel emotionally connected to my work, and then to bring in an outside force is such a different sort of experience, you know, especially if you just start as like, well, let me just like make this like a for no reason. Like I was thinking about it this morning, and I was like, I started actually thinking about talking to you today, and I was like, you know what? No, like I don't want to think. Like, you know, I just
Yeah.
the best part to making something is to just, for me anyway. Some people are planners, and like I just like to just do it, and like it's sort of, I think, to use your words, like I'm self-curating all these things that are going into my eventual creation. And maybe I think I don't necessarily love to see the path, you know, like maybe we can't always see that path from like, okay, all these things here, all these influences are going to get me here. Cause every now and then, doesn't like an idea just like strike you like lightning, man? Like
Sure.
nothing, like it
Yeah.
comes out of nowhere.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. For sure. But I think, you know, the more that you're exposing yourself to things that are connecting with you, I think the ideas are going to abound. You know, because I agree with you 100%. I mean, before I managed artists, I was releasing music. You know, I was releasing music, like rap records, and I never really sat down and tried hard to write a song. What I did was that I would look for so much music that inevitably I would come across a sample, and I'd be like, oh my gosh. And I just like, it just come out. You know what I'm saying? So I
Yeah.
think the more that you're just exposing yourself to things that are making a connection with you, the more that those things are like sitting in your subconscious, and then you're just gonna create. You know what I mean? I think Andy, the artist that I managed, one of the things he told me when we first ever hung out, he's like, an artist's job is to be inspired, you know? And I was like, whoa, that's really good. And that's true. So you hear about like, man, you want to be a great artist, go live life, like, or travel if you can, or if you can't, just watch movies and listen to music that you wouldn't, or go see art. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
go try different foods, like whatever, man. Just like go out there and find things that resonate with you, you know?
Yeah. Ah, I love that. I love that so much, man, because it's so damn true. Like, you know, just like going out there and experiencing and feeling and like identifying, like knowing yourself, I guess, is really like the key to creating, right? You know, it sounds like that's what I'm hearing you say.
Yeah, or and just I guess embracing what resonates with you, and not worrying about like, oh wait, is this respected art? Is this from a no? Like, dude, just if it resonates with you, there's so many reasons why it might resonate with me and not with you. But if it resonates with you, you should go the extra step and like ask why. That's another thing, you know, like why do I like this? Because then you're gonna start to realize some of the DNA. And then honestly, that's what makes up like your specific creative DNA. You know what I'm saying? Like everyone has trademarks and stuff like that. It's because that's what resonates with them. And then they take all that and now they make something that resonates with people that also can relate to things like that. You know, that's something I didn't used to do for a long time. Like I just be like, oh, I love this, I love this, I love that. It's when I was like, why? Why do I love this? Why do I love that? And like I'll sit down with Chris and I'm like, man, I really love this. And Chris is like, oh, you really like low contrasty. Listen, and I'm like, yeah, you know, he's like, and it goes back to what I was telling you in the beginning. I think, you know, you don't want to be the person that's so technical that you're creating soulless work. You know, that exists. You know, there's people out there that it's like, man, this is all, you're a freaking nerd and this is all technically sound, but like, where's the soul in this? You know what I mean? And then you have people that don't freaking know almost anything technical, but they lean heavily on their taste, you know? But I think honestly, you don't want to be either, man. If you could be in the middle where you know the technical tools, because the technical tools, and that's something I'm growing in right now, the technical tools just help you to give better expression to your ideas. And it also helps you communicate with collaborators, right? Like if I'm telling you, oh dude, this is what I want, right? And if I can speak in your technical language, and that's going to help you to collaborate with me in executing that, right?
Yeah.
But if I'm just like, oh, I don't know, man, I just want this feeling, and you're just like, all right, man, but like, talk to me, you know, like, what do you mean exactly, you know? But I'm learning now, like, even learning about lenses, like how me learning what like a what a specific lens, what feeling a specific lens gives, then I can say like, oh no, dude, we have to shoot that on a 50 millimeter. You know what I'm saying? Like, even if you're the nerd, and that's why I'm working with you, because I'm like, oh no, you want to talk about real technical stuff, go talk to Ryan. I'm just directing this thing, and that's why he's on board, right? But I know enough to tell you, like, oh, dude, we got to shoot around a 50 millimeter because I want people to feel, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like,
yeah. When you can communicate with people and when you can speak their language and when you can speak multiple languages, like it makes the end result just way better, you know, like, because sometimes working with other people, especially on a big collaborative team, like stuff can get mixed up and like you may have like an idea and it's like, I'm like, damn, how do I get this idea out? And like, you know, I've tried to get ideas out before and I'm just like, okay, like I didn't necessarily get there, but I think each one is like a learning lesson. And I think that's true, man. Yeah. Like when you can speak on somebody's like language, when you can bring it to their house, you know, like that's only going to make,
and I think there's a threshold, right? Like, I don't want to be the person that knows all the technical stuff about everything. Like, I really like the fact that my taste is what I hone more just through my intake of stuff, right? And my like organization of references and curation. Like, I know what feels good. I know what I like. I know what I want people to feel. But I want to at least hit that threshold where I can talk to you about how, in technical aspects, how we can go about achieving that. Because I think it removes a lot of frustration. Frustration from me, because I'm like, I know what I want, I just don't know how to explain it. And frustration from you when you keep bringing me back, let's say, edits, and I'm like, nah, that's not it. And you're like, all right, bro, give me some notes. I don't know, man. It just needs to feel different, but that's not it. You know, like, that's just frustrating, you know?
Yeah. So how do, like, just thinking about like your curation, if that's like, it sounds like that's like a form of your expression, you know? So like, how do you channel that and share curate? Like, how do you share that curation? Do you do that?
And that's been something that I'll tell you this, right? This is another rock that you could trip over. Not starting something because you're like, but how am I going to make money? You know what? Like, I think there's something good in that, because you can take that into consideration, right? But I think especially when you're like concepting, I almost want to say like, just don't think about that, right? Like, just make something really dope, right? And think about monetization after. You know what I mean? Because
Absolutely.
I think it's stopped me. For example, I want to do like a journal, you know, a journal where I curate people, places, and things that I think are worth people experiencing, you know, or learning about. You know what I mean? I want to launch a journal that not only inspires artists, but that also helps to save people time and money by curating things that are worth their time and money. You know what I mean? Like, that idea to me is super enticing, because I think we live in a world of almost limitless options, and it gets overwhelming, time wise and financially. And, you know, there's nothing I hate more than buying something pretty that doesn't work.
Mm.
I prefer buying something that works that isn't pretty, but I'm not satisfied with that. You know, my ideal is like style and substance. You know what I mean? Like quality and aesthetic, you know? Um, so me hunting for these things that kind of hit both of those and promoting it to people to be like, look, I dedicated the time, and doing that on as big a scale as I can is super enticing to me, because saving people time and money is something that really like does something to me, you know? And you know, I get super excited. Like when I watch a movie, I'm like telling everybody, like, "Yo, go watch." My wife and I just watched Honeyland. Did you see it?
No, I've heard of it. No, it's
It's
like on
on.
my list, dude. My
I
list
think
is
it's on
so long of
Amazon Prime.
movies.
I know. I think it's on Amazon Prime right now. I'd
Okay,
knock it up there. Put it maybe first or second, dude. It's
really?
exceptional. So I'm just like, oh my God, this is so good. Like everyone should watch this, knowing that not everyone's gonna like it because it's subjective, you know.
Yeah.
But I'm like, yo, this is worth your time, you know. And I really do believe that when we do have money and discretionary income, because mind you, some people are living in poverty, right? So,
Mhm.
you know, you got to get what you can. You know, you don't have the luxury of like debating, like, damn, you know, which thing should we buy? It's
Right.
like, you just got to get whatever you can. But I think you and I, uh, that's not our reality, right? So I think with the luxury of having money and time comes a responsibility of how you utilize that money and time.
Mhm.
And honestly, I want to give my money and time to things and people that I believe in. You know what I'm saying? This is now we're tapping into like consumer power, you know, because
Right.
really that's what makes a difference, man. Like, so I want to make sure that I contribute to the organizations and the people that are doing things for this world that I believe in, you know. And I think if I can help identify those things, you know, like there should be more Honeyland films, you know, and less like of these nonsense films, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I want to help be a voice to guide people to these things that I think are truly good, even with a capital G good. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, man. Yeah, I totally feel that. And it's like, man, like that is like curation in its best form, that is like really just bringing stuff to cream rises to the top, and like just having
Right.
something that really will resonate and impact people and inspires people. Talk about like connecting like the artist to the end person, like the
Yeah.
artist, if their job is to inspire and then they inspire somebody else, maybe then that brings that feeling of creativity to somebody else, and maybe they're inspired to make or do or see something else.
Yeah. And I mean, the position I'm in right now is where I do that, you know? So, you know, to give you a concise answer, the two ways I want to use my creation is to find things that I think are worth people's time and money and promote it to them, you know, and make them aware of it, you know, because it helps the user and the artist, like you said. You know, I want to be able to have the influence that if I find an amazing artist or film, that I can actually make a difference in the money the film makes and the opportunities that that artist has now. I would love that. But in addition to that, I obviously want to create things, you know, like I told you, managing these artists, I've been put in a position where out of necessity, I've had to step in and creative direct. You know, I'm in the middle right now, literally before we were doing this, I was sending like a fifth round of notes for a music video that we're about to drop. And now I'm getting into the nitty gritty about like the typeface and the title and like all that stuff. But, and it's been good because I think my comfort zone is to just stay curating,
Mm-hmm.
you know. But I think to then take all that and to make something new out of it is really dope. So those are the two things I want to do with that. But like I was telling you, I'm in a position right now where as a manager, I do have to pep talk my artists. So I'm finding like stories out there about like the Beatles and Dylan to make them realize that you're not the only one dealing with this, you know, like they've dealt with this, you know. So I'm finding obviously a whole bunch of reference material to send to them. So I'm already exercising that. What I want to do is like properly though, create some type of journal or something like that where it can just be beyond my artist and it can start becoming its own thing, you know, in addition to when I want to create stuff, you know.
Yeah, damn, man, I love that. You know, like, cause thinking about like it would for the majority of, let's say, brands out there, it would be really tough to call them inspiring. There's a few, and it
Sure,
sounds like
sure,
you want
sure.
to
Yeah.
build something that's going to inspire others. And that, I'm just like, that's like a cool thought that I could just hang on and I can be like, whoa, like
Yeah.
you're coming from a place of your passion. You're staying true to like yourself and what you want to do. You've pinned down what you like, and then you just want to push it out there. And that's another form of creation, in my opinion.
Yeah, man. You know what? When I think about it, I would love, let's say with you, right? I would love for me to have things that you can go to and get fired up. You know, anything from like uh, stories behind your favorite creative works where you see like the struggles they went through and even some of the technical things they did, right, to achieve it. I'll give you an example. I've been really into Abbas Kiarostami lately. He's a Iranian director. He's done a whole bunch of films, and I'm watching his films, and I'm like, how does he get these performances out of these people? Because they're not actors, you know. He was just rolling up to like little villages in Iran and having like locals be in his film.
Oh, wow.
And his brother, he's passed away not too long ago. And his brother was like, well, there was a scene where the teacher asked the little kid, why are you late? And he's like, do you live in this village because it's far? And he was going to tell him, oh, well, it's okay if you live there. And he was like, no. But like the performance he delivered, like how he was thinking the question through because he wasn't supposed to be late and he's not from that village, like he was in trouble. And then he asked him another question and he said, yeah. And then he told him to come in. But his performance was great. The brother was like, what we did is we asked him a really complex mathematical equation and asked him if it was right. Like complex for his age, for his age. So what we asked him is like, is this plus this times that this? And he was like doing the math in his head. And that was what gave the great performance. And he was like, no. And then he's like, okay, is this plus this times that this? And he was like, yeah. He's like, all right, come in. And, I'm like, just like, that's such a cool trick. You know what I mean? So look, like, I want you to be able to like have access to this information and for you to be like, wow, that's great. I'm putting that in like the tool bag right there. And just for you to get fired up. But in the same vein, I want you to be able to call me and be like, yo, Del, I have a great photo essay idea. You want to collab? And I can because I know enough about photography. I'm obviously going to come with references and we're going to be able to collaborate. I know enough technical language that we can truly collaborate. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's something
damn,
from
dude,
the
that's
breaks thing
awesome.
that we did. I was just like, man, it would just be, it's better for everyone if I just really learn the technical thing because it just makes creating obviously a lot easier. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because you can take everything that's up here and actually be able to communicate it and understand even how this whole thing works. That's something
Sometimes that's the toughest part is like communicating. And I think that point is really fair to like to be able to speak the similar languages to people to to a certain extent.
the
But hey,
tools of the
so
trade.
I just want to let our guests here know that it's open to questions if you guys have any for Del. I just wanted to put that out there. We're coming to our like time to close, I'd say. So if you had anything, feel free to type it in the chat. But yeah, man. I think the whole point of creativity is sort of I really love this word curation. I have like so many like cool takeaways from this conversation, but I feel like I'm really gonna to frame maybe the way I think about things, at least for a little while, in by ways of curation, and like what resonates with me and what really makes me, I don't know, feel something to a degree, and how I turn that then into something creative or how I make something.
You know what it is? The more that I deep dive into the things that resonate with me, and I'm like, oh, I want to know some trivia, some like behind the making of. There's always like, oh, and these 3 films influenced this film. As a matter of fact, this shot was an exact remake of the, and I'm just like, bro, that's, people are just like really immersing themselves in what they like. They're understanding why they're like it. And then they're just taking philosophies and approaches and tricks, like the Basquiat example, and then they're just putting it into their arsenal. You know what I mean? So I think it's important, you know, to say the least.
Yeah, for sure. Cool, man. Yo, well, thanks so much, man. I appreciate you taking the time out. It was such a fun conversation, dude. I love that I got to pick your brain, because you're one of my favorite creative people, dude, for real.
I appreciate you, bro. This was a real honor, my brother. And hopefully when this is over, we get to hang.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Appreciate you, bro.
Yep. Stay safe, man. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, man. Peace.
All right, later.